Gotta say, Blood of the Dawnwalker gameplay overview disappointed me a bit. Game seems quite generic. Not bad, just generic and safe, with some baffling decision making. When I heard that former CD Projekt Red developers got together to create a game and it was a vampire one, I was stoked. I love vampires, as that type of lore can have infinite great ideas for games in gameplay and writing. So far I've only seen the original announcement short trailer and this gameplay overview. Not planning on seeing more than this because I like to go into every new game with a clear mind, no expectations and no bias. So this video talks only about the gameplay. Let's go through this overview, you bloodthirsty bastards. Full reaction to this overview is on Patreon and Subscribestar, links in the description. First we get to see the vampiric form and how scouting an area works. Classic generic area scouting like in most open world games. Thankfully the map does not seem oversaturated by too many icons. Traversing the tower in a vampiric way, meaning sticking to a wall, is nice to see, as I would expect from a vampire to be able to use its powers to do otherwise impossible things. And then the first big WTF moment. Suddenly we, the vampire, transform into a wolf. A wolf. Out of all possible solutions, they've chosen the only animal that is strongly tied to werewolves. Literally anything else would have been fine as long as it's not a fish or something silly as any aquatic animal. I'm no expert on vampires, but a wolf doesn't fit for me. Alright, let's move on. We get to combat. Nice stealth move to finish off the first enemy, but quite unconvincing kill animation wise. Hit impact could have been done a lot better. Then the combat commences and it plays out similar to Witcher 3 in a way, simple movements and attacks with addition of vampiric stuff. Nothing really that I would mind, but impossible to say until hands-on, because combat like this might seem far worse on screen but feel great when playing, or it can be quite average overall. For me it looks nice, interesting enough, nothing incredible. Then we started blocking sword attacks with hands, which really affected the immersion negatively. This is some 1990s first attempt at 3D combat stuff ideas where you have to expect from people to gloss over a few silly things because other ideas are just not realistic to incorporate. Dodging sword attacks in a fast manner would have been such a better option than to block swords with hands, which is just ridiculous. I don't see any viable basis for that which wouldn't affect immersion negatively. Without that little hiccup, combat looks solid. Then afterwards generic talk happens where our character has two options. Don't know how the other one would play out, but the one we saw in action was terrible. Made the character appear too soft and weak after dismantling a group of enemies. Talk with the NPC could have been done by making the NPC say thank you on the fly while running away or something. Would have been much smoother transition considering we gained nothing from the conversation in terms of quality writing. Let's move on to another fight where we see gore in all of its glory. Not before another baffling thing, which is drinking blood through male coif. Again, another 90s first attempt at 3D gaming, the players will just have to ignore it moment. Combat again shows some promise. I really think this could end up being a solid, more slower paced combat with good hit impact and kill satisfaction. I love when there's a bunch of blood and gore as it adds to the kill satisfaction and immersion levels if done right. And from what I've seen, this game does it the right way. Smooth, quick finishers that don't kill the rhythm of combat. Well done. Then we see the character leveling system. Seems to be quite simple and generic one that will most likely completely unbalance the game and make it way too easy later with no challenge except a boss fight or two. Why do I think that? Well, it's because most upgrades are simple parameter upgrades. Plus damage, plus crit hit chance, minus stamina cost. In games like these enemies usually can't keep up and it leads to the main character becoming way too overpowered and game more boring. We could see in abilities section some active abilities like Mesmerize that makes a troll out of an enemy, Shred that inflicts bleeding and some other ones. Again, the most baffling when it comes to immersion is the health leeching block. How How do we leech health through blocking? I get that it's some kind of a magical scarlet shield, but it makes no sense that we would leech health by blocking. I can't wrap my head around it. Through attacks, sure, because there would be blood everywhere, so there could be immersion behind it. But through blocking? I don't know, seems wrong to me, or am I missing something obvious? Then comes the Infamy system that might be a big positive for the game. Seems like the higher the Infamy, the more difficult the game becomes. That could lead to decision making in the game that would make us think more than just smash everything, especially considering there is a time limit. So the more difficult the game becomes, more healing through resting would need to be done, which in turn would make the timer go faster. We'll see how it's implemented in the end and how Infamy is going to affect everything. To see there is progression difficulty makes me think they've thought of creating the whole experience as a gameplay loop, where each action is going to lead towards something, either saving time or making the character better through EXP gain and farming resources. Could end up overall as an interesting design. As with every mechanic in every game, the only thing that matters is the implementation in the end. By learning more information about important enemy characters, we get to do things to reduce the effect they have in the world, which leads to eventual confrontation. Though the mission presented in the game connected to one of the important enemy characters seemed quite generic. We had to deal with some barrels full of blood to disrupt the operation, which raises infamy and passes time. There was also a decision that needed to be made whether to smash the barrels or collect the blood. Would be interesting to see what the other option does. Does it affect infamy at a lower rate maybe? Reduces time spent? These are simple decisions that can be tied into the time limit, which could add tension due to mandatory gameplay decisions. There was another fight with swords that seemed a bit better than with claws due to the simple addition of blocking sword attacks with a sword, which makes the combat seem more immersive. My thoughts on the game are solely from this overview. Witcher 3 doesn't have incredible combat either, but it has incredible writing, character's world. If Blood of the Dawnwalker can deliver in those aspects, it could end up being quite good. If not, then it could be reduced to a generic game. There's definitely potential, but there's also realistic worry considering some decisions that don't really align well in terms of immersion, but that could be changed in the end. I would love to play an incredible vampire game. Can this one be it? Time will tell, but so far I'm not impressed.